Welcome back to another episode of our You Asked For It, the show where you send us questions and we spend some time talking about them, also while sharing our heavy opinion. That's to anybody who hasn't...
Very heavy.
Yeah, anybody who hasn't watched the show before, it's very opinionated.
Yep.
And that's good.
Yep.
It's good to share your opinion. We tend to, all three of us...
We still have free speech in this country.
As of, what's today? Yeah, as of today,
It's still America.
August 2020. It's still America. Stamp it, date it. Anyway, okay, so today's question is kind of broad, but I think I know where it's going, and I think there's a lot of different channels that we can talk about.
Okay.
But the overall question is, with everything that's going on in the world today, okay?
Climate change, or
Yep, that's
That's part of it.
I haven't heard it in a while. That's
the number one thing on the news right now.
Okay.
You haven't watched. No, with everything that's going on, okay, COVID, riots, this, that, we've talked about it for weeks and weeks.
With people staying home more, not driving their big SUVs, I imagine climate change is probably not a problem anymore. So
Again, this show is very opinionated. Okay, so we're hearing a lot of different things throughout this year, okay? You got media, news sources, you got doctors you're listening to, you have your friends and family, you have the keyboard warriors on Facebook, okay?
I don't hear them anymore.
There's a lot of different information that gets thrown out about who's right, who's wrong, okay?
Yep.
When you're collecting all of this info, who do you believe? That's the broad question. Who do you believe?
Easy. I'll go first.
Okay.
No one.
Jeez.
I'm done.
So, like, for example, okay, this was, last week or a couple weeks ago, there was the American Frontline Doctors came on, and there was this whole video that blew up, and how they were talking about how hydroxychloroquine is the cure for COVID, and then you have... You have them swearing by it that this is the cure, this is the solution. Then you have another slew of doctors that are saying, well, no, it's not. You're speaking out about something that's not true.
Recently?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
I mean, the question's being asked.
Okay, so, but that's what I'm saying is you have these two sides. Who do you believe? And that goes for anything that's going on right now. You know what I mean? Who do you believe in any situation?
Oh, no one.
Okay. Kevin, you?
that's a tough question, and I think you're asking this for all of us. Whoever asked the question, I think all of us have a belief. I think everybody has an opinion. We're not the only ones. Everybody has an opinion.
Yep.
But our opinions are formed from our beliefs, and so we do listen to sides, and we do believe certain people. Every one of us, and you tend to either believe. I mean, I think everybody tends to believe in this direction versus that direction. All of us, if we heard information, we're not doctors, we don't know the answer, but we all lean to an answer that we want to lean to. And I would say, gosh, how can we come up with rational, how can we decide that this is my opinion, because we all have one? And that's a great question, but I think there's several things we can do. The first thing is to ask, well, how reputable is the source? If last month this very same source was proven to say an out-and-out lie, and if you have a friend who lies all the time, and they come to you, do you put a lot of weight in it? I know there are some people in church that have come to us with a lot of concerns over the years, and there are some people that just they're constantly concerned about things that change, that isn't there. In other words, every one of us, if you know somebody, if somebody came and told you that your clothes look good on you and somebody says they don't, you're going to automatically believe the person that has the most credibility in your life.
Yeah.
Okay, but those are people we know. So I think there also goes with credibility in doctors, in scientists, in news organizations. And I think that we lean towards this source is very credible, and this source has been proven not to be, is one thing. We're not scientists, we don't know. Yeah. But we do lean to, man, these people are always saying things out there, and so we tend not to believe them. I think that's one source. So knowing their background, hey, how credible are they? I think another one is it has to come down to logical common sense. Now, let me give you an
Can you
example.
define that
Yes,
term?
Yeah.
I have to give you an example because that's hard to find these days. Logical common sense. And logical common sense would just be working through a news story. You hear that, well, let me give you an example of global warming, because we said that before, or climate change now. I'm old enough to remember in the early 70s, on the front cover of Time magazine was, "We are 4 degrees from an ice age, and the earth is cooling." And then all of a sudden, 30, 40 years later, the earth is burning up. And just logical common sense would say, well, man's causing this. And, well, okay, that makes some sense. We're putting pollutants in the air. But then logical common sense would say, but our globe, the system of, especially the rainforest and stuff being cleansed, really literally cleanses the air and stuff.
Yeah.
I asked just something logical would be, well, there once was an ice age. I believe there was. There's some scientific evidence. Mm-hmm. Well, what caused the earth to warm out of the ice age?
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't enough SUVs to do that. I mean, I'm just talking about some logical common sense, no science.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it would be right, but at least leaning towards think about it. Really, SUVs caused it. Well, what caused it? Thousands of years ago. What caused the earth? Was it a sun flare? Was it just cycles? Instead of jumping on, I think another thing is to know who's telling the truth or not. Who's the most panicked about it?
Yeah.
I would tend to not agree. Overreacting, the world's going to be over tomorrow. Everybody's going to be dead next week. Okay, logical common sense says, slow down. I'm going to tend not to believe that as much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just some logical common sense that, well, wait a minute. I'm not saying I know, but at least I'm going to lean towards, I'm not sure that's really true. Mm-hmm. A logical common sense would be when you look at numbers and statistics, and they can all be skewed. But when you look at numbers and statistics of the coronavirus versus the flu, or the bird flu several years ago, or H1N1, the death rates of those things were 10 times higher just by facts from years ago. You can look up, how many people died from this. In the coronavirus, the facts would lean to okay, 0.5% of people who get it die from it.
Yeah.
My logical question would be, why are we so panicked? Mm-hmm. If the H1N1, 6% of the people that got it died from it, that seems way worse than this. So I'm not saying I'm a scientist. I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I'm not even sure we can believe the numbers that we're getting right now.
Yep.
Whenever somebody's getting paid to record a death, they're going to lean toward. So follow the money. Is somebody making money off of this? It would be another logical. I'm just all talking about a logical way of looking at things.
I think that's a huge one. I think money is absolutely huge. Is there big dollars involved in said issue you're wondering about? Mm-hmm. If so, be cautious.
Don't trust them
when getting your information, because money, it can cause some issues. It can cause
we're not saying we know. The question is, how do you know who to believe? Well, we don't know exactly, but we can lean towards these things. Logical common sense would say, are people making a ton of money if this COVID thing is worse?
Yes.
Hospitals get paid for every COVID death.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're skewing the numbers. All I'm saying is, well, logical common sense would say, be careful there.
Yep.
Don't go there.
I'll take a harder stance than that. I would say they are saying that because health experts, I remember seeing a press thing from, I think it was the state of Illinois. A person in the press asked this doctor, hey, can you explain how these numbers? She said, well, yeah, if somebody dies of some other cause, but they also had COVID when they died, it gets marked as a COVID death. Mm-hmm.
So we were asking the question, how do you know what to believe? When the head of an organization on the news is answering a question, and I saw that very same thing, and they said, well, everybody needs to understand, now this is the organization marking the deaths.
Yep.
And they say, in their example on the news, the example they gave was if somebody's in a nursing home and they're on hospice and they're going to die in a couple of weeks, and they die of natural causes but are tested positive for COVID, we mark that as a COVID death. Well, right there, logic and common sense would say, I can't trust these numbers.
Yeah.
If you
not.
die, there's a fact. If you die in a car accident but test positive for COVID, it is a COVID death. So I'm curious, and I'm not trying to make fun here. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I'm curious of how did they mark George Floyd's death? Anybody in his situation would have been marked a COVID death. Was his?
That'd be interesting to know.
It would.
Yeah.
Because then you got to say, like, who's to gain? What agenda's being pushed? I think those logical, common sense things that just, is there an agenda here? Or I don't know who to believe. A doctor says this, that. Well, what's logical? What make common sense? Follow the money. Different things like that. We're probably never going to know exact facts about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of these things help us to lean our opinion to one side or the other.
Well, and I think if you ask questions, which you should, if you do digging and research, which you should, you're not a conspiracy theorist. Okay, that gets thrown around a lot, especially.
Should we get into that?
Especially in the year 2020, that phrase "conspiracy theorist" gets thrown around. No, be thorough in trying to find your answer of whatever it is you are searching. Okay, and if you come out on the side where you don't believe the masses, I don't know. That's okay.
Yeah. I the saddest part about this is off topic a little bit, but the saddest part is you and I, people, we are just way too gullible. We need to logically consider some stuff.
Yeah.
Just because we hear it on the news doesn't mean it's true.
Or even if you hear it from Aunt Susie on her Facebook wall, okay, don't take that as the God-given truth, all right? You can read that and go, oh, I'm going to look into that a little more, you know what I mean? But like you said, just using your common sense. Another thing, I would urge people that are on social media, you see it's so easy to click that share button. Oh, I got to share this article. I got to share that article. Number one, if all you do is read a title and get triggered by it and then share it without even reading the article, read the article, okay, look at who published it, go back, read some of their more work. It's just be thorough, I don't know, before you start spreading things.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not be so gullible. Let's ask questions, ask other questions. Well, if that's true, I just don't, things, also, how consistent are things?
Yeah.
Certain things seem so inconsistent, I tend to not believe them. Because if this is true for that, how come the same thing isn't true for that? See, right there, I would tend to say, well, I'm not going to believe this particular thing, how we treat certain people. Well, the whole rioting thing got me kind of like, is this right or is this wrong? Well, is it right or is it wrong to block a freeway? And I would go to the fact, well, I don't know.
The issue shouldn't matter,
well,
right?
How it's either illegal or legal. It shouldn't matter how passionate you are.
Yep. Shouldn't matter the number.
Does illegal turn to legal when you're passionate? Where's that passionate meter? Or when you got a lot of numbers? Or when you have a good reason? I don't know. It's like, so when stories or movements tend to be so inconsistent, I personally tend to not give them a lot of thought or consideration because it's so inconsistent. The whole idea of, and I'm really getting, probably touching some nerves here, but the abortion issue. The abortion issue is that baby is not a human being till it's born. Well, if that's true, then an eagle is not an eagle till it's born. Why is it illegal to touch an eagle's egg? I mean, it's the same rationale. If we're going to use this rationale for one part of life, we should use it for all. And when groups, movements, or things they don't have that consistency, I tend to blow them off.
Yeah.
Because there's not much truth there. It's just you want what you want, and it doesn't make sense. So I think there are some guidelines that we can use to say, my opinion is going to lean this way or that way on some of these simple, logical, common sense, what's their background? How logical is it? Is it consistent? All of these things, I think, can help lead us to our opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much time we have left. I'm going to open up a whole can of worms right now. Or maybe.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
We got time?
We got like a few minutes,
All
so
right.
go for it.
So, we've been talking a lot about just kind of like more well-known, news, social media, that sort of stuff. What do you guys think about that whole, only because you brought up the term conspiracy theorist a couple minutes ago. I mean, there's a big one out right now with this whole Q. Have you heard of Q?
Q.
You don't know anything about Q?
No.
Do you know anything about Q? Oh my gosh.
What's Q?
There's
Explain
this, I'll
to
try
people.
and, I'm not saying I buy into this, but I'm just saying it's out there. There's this idea that this Q person
Is this
or
a James Bond
organization
movie?
or something has been ever since Reagan. Every president since him has been part of the deep state and this whole Jeffrey Epstein and, stuff going on in his island and Wayfair. You know what Wayfair is? That
I don't.
online retailer.
No.
They just sell furniture and stuff. And
I am 60 years old.
sometimes they have benches and closets that are $17,000 and people think it's because Wayfair is
the sale of a
sex
child. Yeah.
trafficking and
They
they
think it's
mail you a
marked as-
bench and it's got a kid in there and that's why it's $17,000. And
Buy one and see. Then you'll know the truth.
what do you think?
I have heard that.
And the fact that this whole
Okay.
idea, again, I'm not saying I buy into this, but that this organization or this person Q, some people think that Q is a Kennedy that supposedly died, but he didn't die and he's just been hiding in, masks. And they brought Donald Trump to the presidency because he's the only one that can go through this. And there's going to be this mass revealing of the deep state and all the child sex trafficking and on and on and on. And there's been different dates. Stuff was supposed to happen and it hasn't happened. And
Well, look at the
what do you think?
Look at the consistency, okay? If we're going back to this question, because I now that you talk about it, I have heard about all of that, and I think child sex trafficking is a whole nother episode that we could spend a lot of time on, and quite frankly, I don't think enough people are talking about it. Anyway, look at the consistency. I look at when it comes to sex trafficking in Hollywood, and a lot of people are getting called out in Hollywood. Well, when there's normally like a national issue going on or something big, who are the first people that usually speak up about it? It's all the warriors in Hollywood that make a lot of money, so they think we care about their opinions. So they speak out about it. But when sex trafficking is talked about, all of them have been pretty much silent. So that's what I look at, and I try to implement some of that common sense or look at the history, or you know what I mean? And maybe, I don't,
That
that's...
Save the Children hashtag has been banned on Facebook?
Yeah, I don't understand. Again, that's a whole nother can
Who
of
do you
worms.
trust? I have no idea anymore.
But
and
it does.
so-
It goes along with that. Who do you believe?
I have no
Who do you
idea.
trust? So we're saying ultimately just look at the consistency, implement some common sense. Just
Some logic.
yeah.
Follow that. Does this make sense? I do want to address, can I? Just
Yeah.
The whole conspiracy theory thing. I tend to just lean away from conspiracy theories, no matter what they are, no matter what side they are. Again, using these basic rules is because it's hard to find two people to agree on anything. When they say the government's so divided. Our government couldn't be
thousands and thousands of politicians
You know,
and
the-
celebrities.
They're
and
not
sports
united.
people.
They're not united enough to
the
just say
government
the government
wants to do this, and they're trying to do this to you. Well, the government doesn't get along enough to make a secret last a day. So
Yeah.
I just have a hard time going there, just simply for that reason. The government is so split and so divided, they couldn't do anything together. However, are there some evils in our world that are working and undermine? Are there underground drug things? Yeah, there are. I mean, if those are conspiracy, but when you're talking about major world and it started in 1874, this one family decided that they were going to rule the world. And I don't go there. It doesn't follow any rules and I've seen people conspiracy theorize the Bible, and I know the Bible well enough that I can see where people can make one link to another sound like sense,
Yeah.
and it's not. And I think when you listen to conspiracy theories, well, it's easy to link. I just don't believe it. I've seen so many things linked that really make sense. Unfortunately, they have nothing to do with each other, and so I just don't go there.
The issue I see with conspiracy stuff is it's all retroactive. I've never seen a conspiracy, like, hey, on this date it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, then when it doesn't, there's always like, oh, well, this is why. So I don't know. Yeah. It's just interesting, right? Who do you trust? Because
who do you believe?
There's such wide extremes now on every topic. I have no idea anymore.
Yeah, and it seems as though everything's kind of just split down the middle. You got two sides, and they kind of tend to read the article that favors them, and it just pumps them up even more in their belief. But
I just love thinking about common sense and what did people say before. The whole mask issue, which we're not going to go over again, but we're just using this as an example. What do you believe? Do masks help? Don't they help? Well, it's just interesting that when this first came out, when COVID was first came out, that masks weren't pushed because they were ineffective.
I have a video saved on my phone of that. For that very reason. It's of Dr. Fauci literally saying in March of 2020, masks are not effective. They do not provide the protection you think. In fact, they might make things worse because people are constantly touching their face.
Yep.
I saved it to my phone just because I want to have record of this.
So still, who do you believe?
Yep.
But when we look at the past, we look at consistency, we add logic to it, and you just come up with these ideas that I'm not a scientist and I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's not logical that
you can still think for yourself. Yeah.
I mean,
you're not a scientist, but you can still use your brain.
I would just warn everybody, just don't believe everything you hear.
Yeah.
Because the people saying this are not consistent. They didn't. And I mean the same people. They said at the beginning of this thing, masks were not effective. What's changed? Nothing. So logic would tell you, I'm not a scientist. I can't prove it, but going off of the people I'm listening to. So, the 6 feet separation that's enough. They said, well, is it still enough? I don't know. All I know is this. I couldn't prove right or wrong, but I have an opinion based on people's credibility, logic sense to that, kind of putting that together, just thinking about it. I lean more towards masks really don't help. And that's my personal opinion. And actually check your CO2. And I can check. There are some things I can test because I was at a doctor and tested it. He tested it in front of me that your CO2 levels just spike with a mask on. Well, that's not healthy. No. If we didn't have Corona, everybody'd say, don't do that. You know? So anyway.
So the ultimate answer is, I don't know. I don't know. It's tough.
I believe I covered that in the first minute.
It's tough to know who to believe.
Engage your brain.
But engage your brain. Yeah, exactly. Is don't just believe what's told to you.
Yes.
If you're told something and you critically think about it and their conclusion is your conclusion, so be it. You know what I mean? But just, you may not be a scientist, but you still have a brain and you can still think for yourself. You don't have to believe everything blindly. So maybe that didn't answer it at all, but hopefully you got...
We got a discussion out of it anyway.
Yeah, hopefully you got something good out of it. But anyway, hey, send us some questions. We'd love to talk about them. You can send one in, contact@accesschurchonline.org. That's an email. Or send us a Facebook message, Access Church, or just comment on this video with a question for next week. We do this every single week, and we'd love to spend some time talking about your question. Other than that, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thanks for the discussion.
Adios.
Have a great week.